Start the recording here. Today we're going to go over the short paper and then the first exam. It should be pretty brief. I think we can be like 15 minutes, fairly straightforward. And you get credit for being here, all that jazz. Awesome. So I hope everybody's doing fantastic. Now let me forget to talk about like contingency plans for exam one, because someone did bring it up beforehand, and I have an email sitting in my box right now about professors discussing it because it's gonna snow Wednesday, probably. I never know with Oklahoma, but you know. So the first paper is due. The first short paper is due on Sunday. And I believe most people I've turned in their company ideas. So I did like a first wave where I answered everybody and said like, yes, you can do this. And now that the date is closed after this class, before I leave this room, I'll actually go through and read the rest. So if I haven't approved of your company choice, you will have it approved by the time you get to your car, basically, because I'm going to do it right after this. But I want everybody to have the full chance to get it turned in. So make sure you sent me 2 companies. If you haven't done so already, then you need to email them to me. Because you've got to have them approved before you do your short paper to actually turn it in. The papers are due Sunday, and then they'll be graded by a team of GAs. They usually try to do it in a week. They usually get them all graded by that Friday, so you'll have your results back. We're going to go over, this is a slide deck that all the professors use about academic integrity and turn it in. So I posted it online, so you all have it. I'm not going to go through every little bit of it, but just a quick heads up. So at Oklahoma State, this is what they consider academic did I get it cut? Oh yeah, just right. These are academic integrity violations, basically plagiarism, working with other people, turning in work that's not your own, all that kind of stuff. If anybody can actually fraudulently alter their academic records, I'd be impressed. You probably shouldn't be here. Be like MIT doing something crazy with computers. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to go into turn it in. So I talked about this originally at the beginning of the semester, but when you submit your papers, they will go through turn it in. What turn it in is going to do is it back checks everything that you turned in with everything that's been turned in Oklahoma State and everything that's published on the internet. So basically, if you turn in a paper that someone turned in 2 years ago through Oklahoma State, it'll back check it for that. And again, check sites online. It's based on a percentage. The percentage is literally how much of your paper is written somewhere else. We expect there to be a degree of overlap because of like citations. So like at the end, you have your reference page when you do quotes and stuff like that. And then also just common phrases may come up. But typically only flag things if it's like a whole sentence. 40% is our cutoff. So turn it in, anything over 40% is automatically given a 0. Almost every single time, it is not somebody actually lifting a paper or trying to cheat. I said this before at the start of the semester. I've only had like one time that someone actually cheated and they lifted like 2 pages. Just blatantly. So don't do that. You can submit your paper early. And if you submit your paper early, it will actually run it through Turn It In, and you can see your score. And if your score is too high, then you can adjust it and send it in again. So I recommend everybody do that. So send it in early. It'll run it through. I don't know how long Turn It In takes. I've seen it be instant. I've also seen it take like a day or 2. But send it in early. Let it run through your score or run through your paper, and then If it is over, it's almost always over something like over quoting. People are like quoting too much, and it's not a very long paper. And so if you have lots of big quotes, then it's going to get you. It should be set up to allow you to submit as many times as you'd like, and the TAs should grade your most recent submission. So if you send like 3 in or whatever, as you adjust your score, they're going to grade whatever the newest one is. Again, check quotes. That's literally mostly what it is. It's almost always quotes. Last year, the like 5 times I had students go over 40%, it was quotes every single time. And it was always like one big fat quote, and you just had to cut it up. Cool. You guys have probably dealt with Turnitin before. Just don't get high scores on it. I'm not going to go through all of that. Things that require citations. The TAs have been, I went through like a whole grading process with them last week. So all the professors sat down with the TAs. They've been grading the papers. We came up with a new paper rubric. It's only slightly altered from the one at the beginning of the semester, but I did post it online. So it's on the like short papers tab in Canvas. It's the new paper rubric. So it's how your paper will be graded exactly. So like the students that are grading will have, the TAs will have it in front of them. And that is what they'll use to grade your paper. At the bottom, it even has like tips they're supposed to look for about like takeoff points if this is missing or takeoff points if they do this. So you can see exactly the guidelines they're going over. But they're also going to be more careful about what you cite. So things like this, Elon Musk is the CEO of Tesla. At 50 years old, Elon Musk is the CEO of Tesla. While Elon Musk has been the CEO for Tesla for several years, he recently announced that he has a new title of Techno King. The first one, you don't have to cite because that's considered common knowledge, quote unquote. The second one, you technically would have to cite. At 50 years old, Elon Musk is the CEO of Tesla, parentheses, blah, 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 author or website, comma, 2021 or 22. And then the last one, obviously, a citation. I know a lot of people in here probably haven't done an APA paper before, right? Like a lot of you guys, some of you, I think a lot of teachers do MLA, but we are doing, are you getting it figured out? Sorry, I know you came in late.
Yeah, this is the sitting card. It's been around the room.
Yes, it's been around the room, and you're the last one. So it would have gone from you there, I'm assuming. Well, it's already been through this side, I think, also, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just need to find your name. I know who you are.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
There you go.
yeah, I got you. Some of you I've had conversations with or without mask after class, and it's made it easier, but the mask thing's made it harder to know everybody. Perfect. So when in doubt, definitely cite it just to be careful. I know a lot of people haven't done an APA paper. I haven't unhidden this yet because I don't want to confuse people, but I added an APA example on Canvas. I was going to use a previous paper, but there's way too much overlap with the companies with like all my previous cases that I could find, right? All my previous papers, because most students stick to like mainstream companies. So I didn't want to post another student's paper with, even if they're identifying information off. So I found a really good student paper on a different subject that's very well APA cited. Purdue Al actually posted it as like their standard APA paper of like how references should be done, how in-text citations should be done. So I'll unhide that on Canvas now. I didn't want to show it beforehand and then people be confused as an example paper because it's not over the same material. But you can look at that if you haven't done APA. The Writing Center is also a good resource. Purdue Al is a fantastic resource for APA. Or you can ask me. All my publications have to be in APA format because that's standard research paper. So that's why we mostly do APA formats anyway. Okay, that's what we write in. Also, APA changed halfway through my PhD. In 2019, they adjusted the APA rules, and that sucked. I like literally published a paper in APA format, and then like 6 months later, I had a different paper, and then I got ripped because it wasn't properly cited. Because like the rules changed like during that 6 months. So dumb. Yep, I put all those in there. There's academic integrity, LASA Writing Center, Purdue Al, APA, and then again, I'll have the paper posted on Canvas. It's all under the short paper tab. So the requirements for paper 1, the short paper 1, 2, and 3 will all have these requirements. Between 700 and 800 words. Talking with the other professors, and I don't know if you guys know who Jim Pappas is. You know who Dr. Pappas is? Dr. Pappas is the head of the management department. He also teaches this class. So like there's 4 professors that are teaching fundamentals of management, but not only is he like leading the charge in fundamentals of management, he's also the head of like this department and my job, basically. He's my boss. So I talked with him because I like my students to be able to go long, and he said up to 5%. So if you guys go like or up 5 to 10%. So if people have like 850 words or something like that, almost 900 words, they're not going to deduct for that. Over 900 words, they will. Because generally, this is a paper where it's hard to go within the limits. People always have too much to say. Double space, 12-point, 1-inch margins, Times New Roman, all that jazz. Don't lose points on this stuff because this is like the guaranteed points. And then you will choose 2 of the following 3 options. And this is all on Canvas under like the requirements, but we also have it here if you need it. So choose 2 of the following 3 options. You have to do 2. You'll lose half your points if you don't do both. And that is the number 1 reason people do bad on the paper is they don't do 2 options. So the first option is the ethics option. So whatever company you chose, you need to make sure you go through and collect all this information. The best thing to do is to get your option, to read all these points and just make sure you are very clear about what point you're answering. So use common language for this and just be very direct. Now, 800 words isn't a lot. So you only have to write like a few sentences per because you're very direct about your response. The paper kind of guides you in what they want you to answer. Then we have the diversity option. Most people do option 1 and 2 for some reason. And then the international option. Some companies may not be international, so it makes it harder. Almost every company that's medium to large size does advertise their diversity and their ethics. If they've had scandals, it's easy to find. If they have ethical practices, they post about it. If they've had diversity scandals, it's easy to find. And if they're pushing their diversity, it's easy to find. These are all things that people want out there, or they don't want out there, so the media puts it out there for them. Cool. There's not much more to say on the short paper. Does anybody have any questions regarding it? Yes.
We're still submitting to Canvas, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll also be submitted on there. Yeah, there's a short paper one, Dropbox. It closes at midnight on Sunday. Just submit there. And the TAs will pull it, they will grade it, and they'll post it, usually with comments on the side, and they fill out the rubric, and they're like, this is how you did. If you have any questions about the way a TA graded it, you're welcome to ask them. If you're not satisfied with the answer, you're welcome to then bring me in. And I'm always happy to talk. People tend to do well on the papers. Last thing I'll say that isn't on this shared slide deck, make sure you write, I assume most people have had Comps 1 or Comp 2, make sure you write professionally. So have like very professional tone, they use a lot of filler words, stuff like that. Because it is a professional writing paper and they can deduct off professionalism and basically how well it's written. Cool. Let's go to the exam. Everybody did sign this, correct? We're good? I want everybody to get credit for being here. Awesome. I think I have it listed on the syllabus that in the future, review days are optional. The reason this one isn't is because it's the first exam. So like the set of rules are going to apply for the rest of the semester and because we're doing the short paper talk today. But after that, you can come if you'd like. So exam 1. Currently, and somebody may be able to confirm this, they told me, I have an email that says we are in North Hall 243 computer lab it's reserved for the test exam or the test date throughout the whole semester. I thought I went to 243 last week and it was definitely not a computer lab. Does anybody know? Okay. I'm going to double check now after class. I might have gone to the wrong room, but so right now we're in 243 and they said it was a computer lab, so that's great. But I teach in 244 on Wednesdays, and I was like, it's the room next door, and that's not a computer lab. So we'll see. It begins at 3 p.m. We can't start really any later than 3:15, so make sure you're on time because there's another class that actually comes into that room around 4:30. The exam takes a little bit of time for people to get started because you have to put in a password and everything and get to the right place. And sometimes if people are putting the passwords in wrong or it's taking a second to load. So make sure you're on time. You may have heard that you needed an ID. You don't need an ID for me. I know everybody's faces roughly with masks. I know most of you at this point. Believe it or not, I read your about you stuff and try to match names and faces if you have them on Canvas. So don't worry about an ID. Begins at 3 p.m. Can't start past 3:15. It's 50 minutes long. It's timed in the in the exam. It's going to be on Canvas. You actually take it in the actual or on Canvas under the quiz tab, I believe. It's 50 questions. It's going to be a mix of multiple choice and true false. No fill in the blank. No short answer or anything like that. I've said this before, most people finish in like 25 to 30 minutes, so that the time frame is usually, there's so many questions that are quick to read and quick to answer that you tend to gain time. But it's still timed, so. The snow stuff. So this morning, there was like talk going back and forth about what to happen. And Jim is like going to be the final decision. Dr. Pappas, I should call him Jim. Dr. Pappas is the final decision. So I'm waiting to see what they say. Supposedly, it was originally supposed to like snow Wednesday, and then I was told it was going to get really bad like Thursday morning, and now it looks like it's going to get bad like Wednesday morning. So that's bad for us. I don't want anybody to have to drive in the snow and ice. And we live in Oklahoma, so if it like starts to snow, the university closes. But yeah, I've heard it's like 1 to 3 inches of snow and ice on Wednesday. So if that happens, if it's bad, and especially if the university closes especially, then we'll have to have some kind of contingency. Once Dr. Pappas lets me know, which they're talking about it today, and they're going to want it set sooner rather than later, then I'll post what we do if that happens. But if the exam is canceled, then I will post it on Canvas. Obviously, if the university is closed, we will not have the exam on Wednesday in person. And I doubt they'll have you take it virtually at home. My guess is they're going to have you do it at a different day. If you do it virtually at home, we used to think you could just give people lockdown browser. Like during my master's, they just had you do lockdown browser at home, but like that just means you can't use that computer. So like, I mean, who doesn't have like a phone or 2 computers or whatever, you know? But wouldn't that be great? Oh, you could smoke an exam like this if you had 2 computers. You could just control F the textbook. It's pretty straightforward. Oh, also at the back of the slide deck, I don't know if you saw, I think there's like 20 or 21 questions that we put together. Those questions won't be on the exam, but I will say they are altered versions of questions that are on the exam or that you could get, like they're typically like changed. So I put them on there so you can see the structure of the questions. You will get questions similar to that, similar in style. So I wanted you to have as many as possible. Cool?
Where was that located at?
Where's the one? I'm
The
sorry.
questions?
They're on this slide deck.
Okay.
Yeah, at the very end of it, it's like, I think it says like exam review questions. I just have 20 of them or something. I'm not going to cover them in class because it would just take so long and be monotonous, but they're all there. Yeah, so I'll let you know. I'll make an announcement as soon as I know what we're going to do in case of snow and ice. I don't even know what I mean by in case of snow and ice. It's probably going to snow and ice. Like we're going to get something, but I don't know how bad. So I posted an outline last week. Hopefully everybody saw it. It's chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. I put the subjects that the exam's going to cover mostly. In this class, especially because of limited time and because you all can read, so I don't sit here and do definitions, I tend to cover the topics that are more elaborate, give you background on some of the topics, but you're still expected to know a lot of the definitions and stuff from the textbook. So to succeed on this exam, you really need to kind of look at my slides, look at the slides I hid, listen to my lectures, and also read the book. But these topics are where the bulk of your questions are going to come from. So this is a chapter 1, definition of management, functions of managers, levels of managers, skills of managers, roles of managers, 3 types of organization, knowledge workers, and challenges managers face. I am pretty sure I have slides on all of these except for knowledge workers, which knowledge workers just means skilled labor, if you didn't know. So someone that has, because the textbook says it, I don't think I said it in class, and the textbook says it in 1 sentence, but there's a question on it. But knowledge workers is workers that essentially have some sort of knowledge or skill in a field. So they are skill-based labor. I just wanted to make that very clear because I don't want you to have to find the one sentence in the textbook. So when we talk about, I have a few slides. These are all slides you have from my previous slide decks. But I'm probably going to blow through them fairly quickly. We may not cover all of them because these are things we've already kind of discussed. But when we talk about the definition of management, this is really what we're talking about, is that management is the pursuit of being efficient and effective. Last year, I think some people got confused on what we meant by the definition of management. So I wanted to make sure this is the slide that question comes from. Well, this is the slide that I made on this subject, and there's a question that comes from that subject. These are the 4 levels of management. There's also a cool little diagram that's got them that you can look at and see. You'll probably get asked a lot of questions that are like, not probably, I've read like 5 questions like this. There are questions that will say things like, Sarah does this and this for her company. What level of management is she? Right? So like, she's not an official manager. She's just kind of like a lead, and she's been there the longest, and she's in charge of, directly her team's activities, that she's actually a team leader, right? Or blah, blah, blah is in charge of setting like long-term strategy for the organization, is making long-term decisions, but it's not really in charge of implementation. That would be like a top manager. They'll ask you a lot of questions like that. Or you're probably going to get at least one from the bank of them. 3 types of managerial roles: interpersonal, informational, decisional. The 3 different types of organizations. They'll probably ask you, you could get a question that's going to say something like, it's never going to expect you to know what a company does. It's going to say, this company does this. They sell shoes. Or they sell shoes to make money. They have shareholders, blah, blah, blah. They're for profit. The skills of exceptional managers, you can get, make sure you understand what these are, because you could get questions that it's like, this manager did this. This is an example of what type of skill. I'm not going to make my 30-minute time limit. Sorry, I talk too much. Challenges of being an exceptional manager. I put this slide up here only, but I just wanted you to know, you go to my chapter 1 slide deck. I have this slide, and right after this slide, I have a slide that covers each of these things. Boom, 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 boom. So you have that if you want like the quick snapshot of each of these to help you study. Also, the book has them, but I think the book's a little messier with its organization of them because I'm better. That's not what I meant, but you can find them in the slide deck. So these are what I mean by the challenges of being a manager, and then I'll have slides for each of these. And they're mostly pretty straightforward. Chapter 2, there's really no way for me to give you a strong review of Chapter 2 without doing Chapter 2 again, because Chapter 2 is a breakdown of all the different types of views. I believe that this is a pretty strong representation of the type of questions you're going to get, and the slide deck that I have breaks out each, basically starting from the late 1800s, early 1900s with these historical views, all the way up to the contemporary modern views. And so you can find all these different subjects throughout that slide deck. But again, I can't really cover all these without redoing that whole lecture. But yes, the Chapter 2 slide deck has most what you need. I'm hurting. My daughter did 4 hours of gymnastics Saturday because she had birthday parties and practice and open gym, and I tumbled with her some, and now I'm broken down. Once I hit 30, everything cool I could do just gone, all downhill. Now my body just hurts all the time. Chapter 3. This was the ethics chapter. We didn't cover in class a lot of the bottom stuff with government regulators, sustainability. There should be something. Oh no, trade blocks is in the next chapter. That's correct. There. So you need to know, I put this diagram up and I talked about the different shareholders and stakeholders. And then on the next few slides, I talked about internal task environment and the general environment. Know generally what each of these are. Having a general understanding of this is okay. Just kind of like where each of these things would fall. Once you know these three levels, it's pretty easy to like hear a group and know where they're supposed to be. Board of director roles, ethics. There is a, right here, number 3, board of directors role and issues. I don't remember if I don't think we covered this slide in class. I think I hit it. But I will tell you now, because I don't know how well the book covers it. So the board of directors is essentially when a company especially goes public, like if you're a for-profit company and you go public, so that means people can buy shares into your company. Now you have a responsibility to those people that have bought into your company. So usually you create what's called a board of directors. And the board of directors' job is to represent the shareholders, right? And they generally like elect a CEO, or the CEO is the former owner of the company. Now you run into a problem with board of directors. It's called the agency problem. There's nothing about agency on this exam, but the agency problem is the idea that the board of directors is trying to do what's best for the company and ultimately for the shareholders. However, CEOs often are presented with opportunities to do what's best for themselves at potentially something that will harm the organization. So the board of directors problem that you run into is them trying to make sure they have a CEO in place where they're able to align what he or she wants and their goals with also what the organization and the board of directors wants. That's the problem you run into with board of directors. They call it the agency problem because the agent is typically the CEO, and the CEO has different goals than what the organization is, or what the organization and the shareholders want. And it happens all the time. And if we had more time, I'd tell you lots of cool examples of it, but. You also need to know the 4 approaches to ethical dilemmas. I talked in this class about how there are multiple different ways to conceptualize ethics and ways to approach making ethical decisions and solving ethical dilemmas. In this class, you need to know this just set of 4 approaches. The utilitarian approach, the individual approach, moral rights approach, and the justice approach. I believe the questions on this, if I recall correctly, are very definitional. So it's like, blah, blah, blah is the which approach. Or if you're unlucky and you get a harder version of the question, you could get a question that's like, not unlucky, it's scaled so that you get different hard and easy questions. But a question that'll say something like, this ethical dilemma, like this is happening at an organization, this is the ethical dilemma where they could do A or B. This is the thought process. What kind of approach should they take? The justice approach. They sought out fairness and equality. Like that was the driving force. There'll probably be a key word in there that will key you in onto which one it is. Understand what an ethical dilemma is when there's 2 typically right values and they conflict. Understand the difference between social responsibility and corporate social responsibility. I know that you could get 1 question on corporate social responsibility. Also, I would advise you to go in the book and read about corporate social responsibility because they cover it in more detail, if I recall right. And understand the triple bottom line. Excuse me. Which is that it's like the triple P. It's the idea that organizations should focus on people, the planet, and profit. So your people, so within your organization and socially, the planet, so you're supposed to be sustainable and helping the environment, and then profit, you're an organization, you have to be making money. For-profit organization. And now this is the chapter we did last week. Now this is where I was going to point. I don't know if you guys can see this very well. I know that we did not cover trading blocks very much, And it's the only thing that I'm frustrated on the exam. But I don't think there's a lot of questions on it. It's pretty like face value. So understand what globalization is. Boom, I put the definition on the first slide. Why do companies expand? These are all the reasons why they expand. And how do they expand? I put this up and I showed you what's low risk to high risk. And then I gave you several slides that break down each of these. So just understand in general what each of those are. Because again, you're presented with a question that's like, this company did this. This is an example of a joint venture. Yeah, you could get a lot of questions from these two. Now, the barriers to international trade, these are pretty standard. And then the things we didn't cover, because the book does a better job than I can without going into just exuberating detail, is the organizations promoting international trade, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. I put bullet points on each of them to help you study, so if you want to know what they are, because I think I hid the slides, or you can go to the book and read more on them. If you're still confused, you could Google them, but any question will come from material that we give you in class. But I know sometimes people get confused about what each actually does. And I think that is about it. After that, I have all sorts of exam questions that Jennifer Cohen's helped put together. She's another professor that teaches this, so credit to her. But I confirmed with her that I could steal them and put them on here and didn't give them out. So does anybody have any questions about the exam, about the short paper, about life? No? Cool. As long as everybody signed this, I will go through your company choices right now and confirm. Usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this company's great, that company's great, right? And then you do that one. If you do have any questions about the paper or the exam, or if you're curious about something on the exam, want to know, if you need to know something, you can email me. I'll be pretty active on email for the next 48 hours. And I will try to message everybody tonight, if not tomorrow, about what we'll do about a contingency. As soon as I know, you all know. So, all right. You all are great people. Thank you.